Can everybody can see that okay?
Yep, looks good.
Alrighty.
All right, thanks, Anne. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining tonight, and appreciate you jumping on the phone. We had an in-person Interact meeting last night. Had a pretty good showing there as well. So this meeting at 5 o'clock is for pump station 10 and 11, which is located. Proposed location is at 8900 State Line Road. So tonight I'll be kind of presenting some of the background on what this project is and why we're doing it. And then we have Mike Kalis from HDR on the phone as well. He'll kind of go through the more technical portions of the pump station itself as we get into that. If you have any questions, we'll have a chance at the end to ask, or you can type them in a chat bar and Anne can let me know if questions come in. But it'll be fairly informal. So we'll go ahead and get started. My name's Isaac Crabtree. I'm the collections managing engineer for Johnson County Wastewater. And I've been helping manage this project up to this point. Michael Cunningham's on the phone too. He will be managing the project from the county side moving forward. And yeah, so here's the agenda. We'll start with the purpose and overview, and then I'll hand it off to Mike here in a bit to kind of talk about the pump station, and then we'll finish up with the schedule to kind of let you know what to expect, what's coming up, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions. So go ahead and next slide, Anne. Excellent. Okay, so the Leewood or the State Line Pump Stations and Forcemain project, which you received a postcard about in the mail, really is related to our project that we just recently were almost finished with, the Tomahawk Treatment Plant project just to the west of Leewood City Park, south of 435. This project is obviously one that most people are familiar with that live in the area because of its size and for the contract duration. It's been going on for quite a while now. But this treatment plant was recently replaced and is in service now. And it was, the project was chosen because of the savings that it offered to Johnson County ratepayers. Over the next 35 years, the estimate is $785 million in savings as a result of this treatment plant. And the reason for that is, up until recently, a lot of our sewage flow actually went past this plant into Kansas City, Missouri. There were many reasons for that that I won't get into in this particular presentation, but we had to pay Kansas City, Missouri to treat that sewage flow. And the rates have been increasing steadily over the last few years due to their consent decree overflow control program that you may be aware of. But because those rates were going up, we were paying quite a bit every year to have Kansas City, Missouri treat those flows. So this treatment plant that's recently finished will save ratepayers a significant amount of money in the coming years. As part of this project, additional capacity at the treatment plant was included in the design to take flow from the Leewood watersheds. So that capacity is already part of this plant. And so this project that we're going to talk about tonight, the series of pump stations and the force mains that'll come to this plant, it's all related. So if you want to go ahead and flip to the next slide. This is I apologize, it's kind of small, but it's a map of Leewood. And in particular, you'll see several different watersheds delineated by different colors. So up towards the top of the page, you'll see Dykes Branch in kind of a orange red color. And then next to that, the green is downstream of Dykes Branch. That's part of Leewood. That all flows from west to east towards the state line. And those sewers actually cross underneath State Line Road there where you see 10 and 11. What those numbers represent are IMF locations, which stands for Interagency Metering Facility. And so all the flows that cross under State Line we meter, and then we pay Kansas City, Missouri for all the flow that goes through those metering stations. The same is true for site 12, which is shown just below 10 and 11. There's the blue watershed. It's a relatively small one. 13 and 13A are two more IMF meters that also flow into Kansas City, Missouri, and the purple pink, I'm kind of colorblind, so I can't really tell. That watershed is what flows through 13 and 13A. And then 14, 16 at the bottom, that yellow color there, that's the watershed that's primarily Hallbrook. And that flows from south to north through those two IMF sites and eventually onto an interceptor that goes to Kansas City, Missouri. So right now, just due to the topography, almost all of the flow in Leawood goes into Kansas City, Missouri for treatment, and we pay a bill to Kansas City, Missouri to treat those flows. So if you want to go to the next slide, this is just a regional residential sewer bill comparison. Just wanted to kind of show you where we're at. Johnson County is shown there, highlighted with the red box. Our sewer rates for this year are going to be close to $45, a little over $45 on a monthly basis. And that is actually below the national average, the NACWA national average. You'll see is a little over $48. So our rates are very competitive for the neighboring communities. They're actually one of the lower rates. And that's not by accident. There's a lot of planning that goes into that. We've got an integrated plan program manager, and they've helped us identify projects and to make proactive changes to our system to keep those rates low. And one of those things that keeps rates low are projects like this one we're talking about tonight. By disconnecting those IMF sites from Kansas City and sending most of the dry or all the dry weather flow to our new treatment plant, it allows us, it reduces that bill that Kansas City, Missouri will send us for sending flow in their direction. Trying to think, why don't you go to the next slide? Yes, this is what I want to show you. So right now, if we were to do nothing and continue to send flow to Kansas City, Missouri through these sites, that blue line shows the costs over the next 20 years or so, and it's a cumulative number. So if we were to do nothing, that's what we would end up paying over the course of 20 years, which amounts to a little over $200 million. By building these pump stations, we have that initial capital investment that's shown on the far left under 2025. You'll see that line actually starts at roughly $35 million or in that neighborhood. That's the initial capital investment for this project. That's just a conceptual estimate at this point. But then you'll see we're no longer tied to those Kansas City, Missouri rates. And the slope of the curve is a lot more shallow because we're using our labor and we're paying for power to run our stations, but we're not paying a third party entity to treat our wastewater. And so you'll notice after about 5 or 6 years, or maybe 6.5 years, we reach a break-even point where our investment that we have in these pump stations and this Forcemain actually pay themselves off. And so over the course of about 20 years, we'll save an estimated $100 million. That's actually included in that $785 million that I mentioned earlier on the first slide. But that's really the reason for this project. We have a new treatment plant. We have capacity in that treatment to handle this flow. And by disconnecting from Kansas City, Missouri and sending dry weather flows to our new treatment plant, we can continue to keep our rates low by saving money. Next slide. So this is another view of the 3 pump stations. We showed you the one that showed the watersheds and the different boundaries, each one a different color. This is zoomed in a little bit closer. So pump station 10 and 11, the one we're talking about tonight, is at 89th and State Line Road, which is at the top of the page. That pump station will collect flow from the Dykes Branch sewer and pump it through a force main. And we're proposing that that go down State Line Road, and it'll connect in with another pump station at site 1313A. That's south of 103rd Street and State Line, just kind of south of Gates Barbecue, several hundred feet. And then together, those two pump stations will be in the same force main. It'll be pumped across 435 through Leawood City Park. And when it gets to Leawood City Park, another pump station that's being proposed for Hallbrook, which is shown as 1416, will be combined at that point in Leawood City Park. And so all those pump stations will pump together to our new treatment plant, which is shown with the blue square. That's Tomahawk Wastewater Treatment Facility. That's just on the west side of Leawood City Park. So essentially, we're just collecting flow from Leawood and no longer sending any dry weather flow to Kansas City, Missouri, and pumping it all to our new treatment plant. So I think at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and he's going to go into some more of the particulars about the pump station itself, what it looks like, what it includes, that sort of thing.
Okay, thanks, Isaac. So the Interact project process is a community outreach process to gain input from the surrounding community and incorporate that into the project. Johnson County Wastewater's mission isn't just treating sewage, it's also community enhancement. So this is an important step where we gain input from the public, and we work with the city planning people at Leawood, making sure we address their concerns also, and come up with a project that takes all of that into consideration. So what we do is, this is a preliminary concept of what we're proposing. And once we get through this preliminary development planning process, we will then advance this into the design process, taking into account the comments we receive. And then Isaac will present the overall schedule later on, but it's a couple years down the road before the project actually gets underway construction wise. So part of this Interact process is we notify all the property owners within 500 feet by mail. And so the folks on the call would have received a mailing and probably a postcard too. And we've got each one of the properties identified on here. So whoever's on your properties, no doubt on this map. And we show the pump station there, and I think you guys understand the approximate location. And it's just to the southwest across State Line from Ward Parkway Shopping Center on property. We call it the Apex property. That's the name of the company that manages the property. It's currently an office building that's just to the north of the location we're proposing the pump station. I think, and if you could point just north of but yeah, that's the existing building with the parking, 2-level parking garage and so forth. So the next site kind of drills in a little closer on the site plan. Go ahead and flip the slide there. Yeah. So this is a slide with a lot of information on it. This is all information that we have to put about the area of the facility, the area of the property, and a number of other things to demonstrate that we are complying with Leawood's various ordinances that control development. And what the rectangles you see over to the left are the actual pump station structure. We'll drill down closer on that so you can see what those are. But the intent there is this is at the southern end and the west end of the existing parking lot. The entrance off State Line is to the far right. And that shaded area is just area that we're proposing to pave when the project's over. So really nothing other than those rectangles over to the left is going to be above ground. The rest of it, there's going to be some below ground pipes and like I said, paving of the parking lot. And then around those rectangles, there's going to be some landscaping and other improvements to help screen and provide some green space around the facility. So and if you look, there's some round, they have MHs on them, down at the far right-hand corner, if you scoot over to the right, yeah, and then above there, a couple inches above that, yeah, right there. That's those metering structures that Isaac spoke about. That's where the flows currently go to Kansas City. So we have to build sewers to intercept that and take it over to our pump station. Then we have a pipe come out of the pump station that goes over to State Line and runs down State Line towards 103rd Street, which will carry the flow clear down to 103rd, across 435, back through Leawood City Park to the Tomahawk Creek treatment plant. Next. So this is just a view of the same thing, showing what you would see above ground. The rectangles, once again, are the pump station. We'll be planting trees around it on the west and north and south. The area will be fenced. There'll be trees along the east side of it too, and a grassy area around it, so provide a little bit of green space. So that's the landscaping plan. Next slide, please. So this is this is taken from a 3D model of what the pump station will look like. And this is just the above ground portion of it. The below ground portion will go almost 30 feet down. The sewers that come through here are below the flow line or the bottom of Dykes Branch Creek. So we have to be deep enough for those sewers to get in, and then even provide some more depth below them for the pumps. So it'll be, go as far deep underground as it goes above ground. And the question is, why does it stick up so high? Well, in this particular area, we're in the 100-year floodplain, and in fact, what they call the floodway, which is the actual flow path of the flood. And when a 100-year flood occurs, the water can be as much as 12 feet over the parking lot in this location. And a regulation that we have to comply with, both for the Clean Water Act and just common sense, is to build all the wastewater facilities up above the 100-year flood, so that there's no chance of the flood water getting into the sewage part, or vice versa. So we have the part that houses the pumps and so forth elevated above, so that the hatches and so forth to access the pumps will be above the flood. And that's the level where you can see the black fence. There'll be a decorative fence in lieu of a handrail there. And that level will be about 12 feet above the ground. And then the building above that is for some other features that I'll discuss with you here in just a minute when we go to the next drawing. I believe we got a plan of the building, don't we, on the next drawing?
I'm not sure what's on. No, it's a cast. You mean go to the
No,
drawing and
okay,
come back?
okay. We'll go back then. Go back, Ann.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So the above ground, of course, the pumps have to have electrical equipment to run them. So there's going to be 3 rooms in that building portion. One will be the electric room with all the gear in it. Another will be actually the other 2 are dedicated to odor control. This has a belts and suspender approach on odor containment. One of them will be a carbon scrubber, and anywhere that has sewage will be sealed off, and it'll be force ventilated through a activated carbon scrubber, which will scrub the odors. It's the most state-of-the-art technology for odor control for wastewater facilities. And then we're also going to have a chemical tank and a chemical injection into the Forcemain pipe that takes it to the plant, so that it will sequester any odors from forming in the pipe. So there'll be, it will control any odors from that point on all the way to the wastewater treatment plant. So double investment here in odor control to make sure that's managed. Okay, so next slide, please. So this is going to be designed to pump about 5 million gallons a day. It's going to have 3 125 horsepower pumps for anybody that's interested in these kind of facts and figures. The odor control I just mentioned, both liquid chemical treatment and vapor phase carbon scrubber. The pumps are underground, essentially not audible at all. You'd have to put your ear up to the hatch to hear them. And but the odor control vapor phase has a fan that's used to ventilate the wet well, and that will be in an acoustical enclosure, so we keep the decibels down to an acceptable level, so they're not a nuisance to adjacent properties. And once again, it's in bold here above the 100-year flood, because that was such a critical element in the siting of this pump station and the design of it from an elevation standpoint. Next. So Johnson County Wastewater, of course, is accountable to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment and ultimately the US EPA to comply with all Clean Water Act laws and requirements. But we also engage a number of other environmental, state, and federal agencies to make sure everything we're doing is compatible with the surrounding environment. They're listed here: the Kansas Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the State Historic Preservation Office, that's for historic properties or Native American arrowheads and things of that nature, the Corps of Engineers, and the Kansas Department of Wildlife, Parks, and Tourism. And we've gotten clearances from all of these that what we're proposing is compliant with their requirements. So that shot we gave of what the building looks like doesn't really tell how it fits in with the surrounding area, but this here is a rendering that we had made that you can see the building and the parking lot to the north, and it shows where the building will sit just off the edge of the parking lot, actually extending onto the parking lot. And if you look hard, you can see the fence just to the south of it, where a truck can pull in to do maintenance, and the row of evergreen trees across the front of it there. And then, of course, the native vegetation behind it, between it and Dykes Branch Creek. And then Dykes Branch winds around the south side of this parking lot. That's what all the trees there are there for. So I believe that's the extent of what we have on the specific pump stations. So I'll kick it back to Isaac to kind of talk about the path forward.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So want to talk about schedule real quick. So this week we're wrapping up our Interact meetings, and that'll all be leading up to the public hearing that we have scheduled with the Planning Commission, and that's coming up on March 22nd. And there's an email address that if you have questions or comments, you can send them to planning@leewood.org. You can also submit questions and comments through Johnson County Wastewater as well. So on the comment or on your card that you received in the mail, it has my contact information on it. So whatever's most convenient for you. But then here shortly, we'll be moving into design. We're going to be procuring a different engineer for the design portion of the project. So HDR they brought us up to this point with all the planning, and they've put considerable effort into it. So we've kind of got a concept ready to go, and we'll be getting an engineer on board, and they'll be starting sometime this summer to actually do the detailed design, and wrapping that up in about a year, with the following summer 2023, working at getting a contractor on board to actually construct these improvements. And that process, the bidding and contract award, typically takes about 4 months, 3-4 months. So getting a contractor on board by the fall of 2023 is what our schedule's showing right now. We'll also be working kind of concurrently at the same time, getting a right-of-way acquisition and easement acquisition done, and that'll be done actually right away as we get our consultant on board. And then the construction itself will take about a year, 11 months to 12 months in that ballpark, starting in the fall of 2023 and wrapping up in the fall of 2024. So right now we're targeting November 2024 or thereabouts, getting the pump station started up and in service. That's our rough schedule, subject to change, but that's what we're thinking right now. And I think that pretty much wraps up our content for this evening. At this point, we can open it up to any questions that you might have.
And they don't have to put them in the chat. They can just speak up too here.
Yeah, you can just unmute and say your question out loud if you want, or type it in.
I just had a quick question, if you can hear me.
Yeah, we have things that are like a year out. So, I mean, it's most ridiculous on the word.
Was that Andrea? Was that you speaking?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if you could hear me or not.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Will there be any other construction besides that location that you were showing on the map? Is there anything else that will be happening, beyond just that kind of parking lot area?
Why don't you, Ann, could you flip back and maybe show, keep going all the way back to the overall map. I guess I wanted to
here,
explain
this one
right
here?
there.
Okay.
Right there, yeah. And we can go to the parking lot in just a minute to show you what that looks like. But the construction involves 3 separate pump station sites. So there'll be one up at 89th and State Line, and then there'll be 2 more further south. But what I didn't really get into, the force main has to be constructed as part of this project as well. That's shown with a black line. So there'll be a pipe that goes down State Line Road, and I think Mike mentioned that. It'll eventually jump off of the road down close to 103rd Street, and then it'll be in private easement, and then it'll cross under 435 into Leawood City Park. And so really the main, I guess I wanted to point that out because there will be some disruption in traffic for a while it's being installed down State Line Road. Now, was your question more about overall project or specific to the site at 89th and State Line?
Specific to the site at 89th and State Line. Yeah.
I should have asked you that to begin with. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm gonna go here or the next one.
Maybe go one more.
Yeah, you're gonna do the drill trip?
That one? Is that too
Maybe the one with the sewer shown. There you go.
okay.
So yeah, what you see here, the dark portion shows the temporary construction easement. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, I'm only seeing you, Isaac. I'm not seeing the screen there. I don't know. Maybe I got my screen goofed up here.
I think what the dark is the paving limits. So that'll be the new asphalt. And then the structure on the station structure. Yeah,
so it'll essentially be, I thought we had some, maybe the dash lines are the easement. Is that the dash lines the easement? I guess it's an access easement. So basically it's roughly half of the parking lot on the lower side. And it goes all the way over to the curb on the western side, and actually goes beyond the curb several feet. And I don't remember what that dimension is. Maybe Mike, how far beyond the curb does it go towards the creek?
Sorry, I had my screen goofed up. I was just seeing everybody's faces. So those are, what are you asking, the limits of the temporary easement there?
Yeah, I was just trying to describe about how far beyond the parking lot it goes.
There's a dashed line there.
This one here?
Yeah. That's the southernmost line labeled SS sanitary sewer is the existing one. And then we'll be building one north of there along with the force main. See, those vertical lines are parking stalls. And we'll be building. So it's we're not gonna go beyond the edge of the parking lot there.
We will on the western side towards the creek.
Yeah, on the west. I thought, but not on the south. Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Now we may have to, excavate a manhole to make a tie-in, but we won't be all along that whole stretch of the parking lot.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, mainly, yeah, I was just wondering, yeah, if there would be, trees that would be taken down, if anything beyond that, area, what would be disrupted to put
Yeah.
the building in. So yes, that answered my question.
Yeah, there will be some trees that will have to come down for the pump station itself,
Sure.
unfortunately, but we're going to be planting trees on the north, the west, and the south sides of the pump station.
Okay, great.
Isaac, you might also want to, if you don't mind me mentioning, we did work with the city a little bit on the positioning of this pump station, because there's a large sycamore tree to the north, and they had concerns about that tree. So I believe that we moved the station south a little bit to avoid having to remove that tree. So we've been in contact with the city to try to minimize those effects as well.
That's great. Thank you.
How's Ian doing?
Anything else? No other questions? Cool.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions, we can wrap things up. Feel free to reach out to me directly, or the email address that we shared earlier with the Planning Commission. You can email City of Leawood, and we'll get those comments from them. But
There's
thank you
also a survey at the end of this, a couple of just a couple of questions. And if you have anything you want to add, if you put those in there, that will go in our official documents, notes to the City of Leawood. So there's a couple of things you can answer if you want. We'd appreciate it.
And how is that survey accessed? Is it just does it pop up when you close?
Yes, when we sign off,
Okay.
it'll pop up.
Okay.
At least that's
great.
the way it's designed to. If not, they can email and let me know, but it should pop up.
Well, excellent. Well, thanks everyone for coming. Thanks, Mike, for presenting on the pump station, and hope everyone has a great evening.